Now, hi everyone, this is the Conversation Community Zoom session. The first grew out of a big chat thread started in December of 2018. And in these small group Zoom sessions, we're going to explore kind of one important question in each one to be annotated and shared with the rest of the participants in the large chat gathering. And we can start with just a 1 minute check-in thing. I mean, I can go first. I'm John Kellden. I started the Conversation Community. I think you remembers. You're a pretty magnificent bunch, all of you, which is a bit of a problem because I really can't keep up, which means that I need to sort of do some self-organizing and governance and things. And with the intent of launching the Conversation Community outside the Facebook mothership, and hence the chat gathering, where we explore how to do that, and also these Zoom session where we could actually do more focused things like exploring questions, and even starting projects could be done in Zoom sessions. That's me. Happy to have you here. In my order, we could sort of continue with Ron. Let's see if you are.
I'm unmuting.
Great.
I'm Ron. Hi, Lauren, Tarik, John.
Hi.
I'm Ron Scroggin in Chicago. And I'm very interested in active connections between people, and also in immersive learning environments. And we've sort of done some of that, and we've been in the conversation community over the last few years, and I'm glad we're here, and I'm looking forward to what happens.
Great to have you. Tarik, you're up next.
Oh, am I? I thought we were going in order along from you. Okay, I guess it's different on every screen, right? Okay. Okay, so I'm Tarik. Very nervous, as you can probably tell. So I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and I'm currently a university student at the University of Queensland. I'm studying a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in philosophy and minoring in history and English. And I guess I'm just sort of very interested in exploring ideas and theories and that sort of thing, with sort of the goal of improving the world and sort of, creating a better place for following generations to live in, that sort of thing. And it's turning out that in order to do that, I'm needing to explore some increasingly esoteric and sort of eclectic kinds of things, it seems. So yeah, I'm very interested to be here, and it's great to connect with other people who are sort of interested in these kinds of things across the world, and engage in praxis, as we call it in the Awful Academy, which should be burned to the ground. Let's move on to Lauren, shall we?
No, great to have you, and again, feel free to
thanks, John.
chime in throughout the conversation. Lauren, feel free to take it away. Should you spell out the full question, Lauren, or you just want to do an intro first?
Sure. So my name is Lauren Nignon. I live in Milan, but I'm moving back to the States for a little bit before probably moving back to France. So my husband is French, and we have twins. And I'm interested in kind of distributed social networks and conversation communities in face-to-face, even more so than digital. But what I'm interested in is how can we connect face-to-face communities, kind of salons, in a distributed fashion. So basically, how can we make sure that they share learning and knowledge in a flatter kind of collective intelligence instead of pyramid-shaped information system? So I'm not really sure how that will happen, but interested in finding out. And I'm also interested in kind of developing a connective intelligence where we start to figure out through these conversations how we can better connect people to the right organizations or to the right other people or the right apps or ecosystems. So I'm just interested in better connecting people so they're happier, more well-adjusted, and can do more.
Excellent. I mean, this actually is helping us because your original question that sort of instigated, catalyzed this whole Zoom session, this group, was your brilliant question in a previous chat to us. What if our conversations led to a set of recipes that we could continue to alter as we see fit? Which is a wonderful question. And I will add that also, helping Joe with the annotation tasks afterwards, right? But what you just said is, to me, kind of a possible way for us to start to engage with it, right? Because it's a really big question. So let's do the reverse. Oh, let's say we can have an open session, right? You can just, whenever you feel called, just do something like this, or you just start unmuting yourself and talk, because conversation, right? And yeah.
So the what I like about the recipes, what made me think of it, is that if you have a recipe, you can share it on your blog, Facebook, you can have recipe sites. I go to recipes.com, and then you can post your recipe. Other people can comment on it. They can change it and repost it. And it helps you find recipes in a certain order that's logical. So a recipe can be kind of, it's not committed to just one certain format or site. What you need to have a recipe is some kind of agreement on the measurement. You need to figure out what is going to be like the cups, or you can even have different measuring systems. You can have the metric, you can have it in grams, but basically you have to have some kind of metrics, or I don't know if you'd call it semiotics, but some kind of agreement on some standardization that everyone could figure out how to read it. Because if you didn't have the set measurements of cups or tablespoons, no one would be in agreement about how many things to add. So you need to figure out, I think, what kind of measuring system that you need in order to produce creativity. So the measurement isn't meant to make everything the same, but kind of to promote kind of an innovation ecosystem where people can use these to build upon them.
Kind of like when you go to sort of a student cafe, right? Everyone can actually bring their own coffee cup, and kind of reliably there's coffee or tea in all of them, somewhat, right? Which actually brings me to Tarik, if I could sort of just lure you into the conversation already, kind of, because Tarik, you have a field where you actually know quite a few things that we others might not, right? Which is to do with if we're going to share recipes in a student context, in a sort of campus context.
First, can we define what
you in peers, right? How do you do that?
Firstly, can we define what we mean by recipes? I think I have a broad. I think I have like a loose understanding of what you mean by that, but could you just give me sort of a definition of what you mean by recipe?
Yeah, let's say kind of a stricter definition, which we kind of sort of deviate from eventually, right? But for now, let's say kind of a method card, which is kind of an established thing. There's research kind of what works for as a good method card, which is basically kind of a set of patterns or one pattern, which outlines how to combine a certain why with a certain how. Yes, so, and that can be why, because I need to not just scrape by this course I'm now enrolled in, I actually need to sort of really excel at it because reasons, and then this how I go about that.
Yeah, I got you. So broadly, recipes for any sort of desired outcome or goal. I got you.
Yeah.
Sweet. So it's difficult because part of the issue with university students in the 21st century is that we're very atomized, I think the word you would say is the word you would use. So by atomized, I mean the groups are sort of very individual and cut off from each other, or people are just acting as sort of solo operators, especially if you're kind of like me, for example. I'm a bit more of the kind of shy sort. So for me, if I didn't make an effort, it'd be very easy for me to go through an entire semester of university without actually connecting much at all with the wider student community beyond what you call it, shoots and stuff like that. If you're not joining clubs or actively networking with people, the way you could do it is, the issue is there are a lot of political discussion groups and stuff like that, mostly on an online format, which really thrive. The issue is that they're very sort of inundated with sort of irony and arguments, and that's basically the fashionable thing. It would be harder to sort of bring people into a space. I mean, I could create it. That's certainly something I'd be interested in doing. A sort of more authentic sort of space where, you know, practical advice was the goal. Anything that exists currently wouldn't be beyond the standard, like women's advice format type thing, which is really more just sort of like salacious sort of gossip more than, you know, actual help for people, mostly relationship oriented or stuff like that. I mean, there's room there, but it would require a bit of a cultural shift, in my opinion. Things are kind of, difficult at this point in time. Like the desire is definitely there, sort of in a latent sense, I would imagine. But yeah, spaces would need to be created that could foster that kind of atmosphere.
Which means that there would be a need for some kind of an unlearning, onboarding kind of thing to help people realize that, hey, this different thing we could do, it actually would make sense to try it, right? And this is kind of a bit of a leap towards Ron, but Ron, if I remember correctly, you actually helped your music students kind of start from knowing precious little about doing mixtapes and music production and playing and things like that, Ron. Is that correct? You think I need to, there you go.
Well, yes, and it was primarily focused on guitar playing. It may led to some immersive learning experiments, and that added, so that it kind of eventually got beyond guitar playing. And so the experiences I had are what ultimately led me here.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, there's some possible connection with knowledge recipes, and I can clue in the others, because me and Ron have talked for years about these things. If there's something we say that is gobbledygook and widely esoteric and really nerdy and just outright strange, just feel free to ask us follow-up questions, right? We talked about mixtapes, which I see as a possible way to obviously create mixtapes in terms of music, and you know, kind of the cassette player, which was a wonderful thing.
Does Tarik even know what mixtapes are?
Yeah, I do.
The knowledge recipes for...
I do.
Sorry, what?
No, we're just having a laugh because Lauren asked if I even know what mixtapes are on account of my age.
Yeah, so anyway.
I do. People still make them on apps and such.
People do, right? I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, but the knowledge recipes can then sort of be contextualized in a way that makes them very accessible, right? Because, okay, knowledge recipes, what's that? Very abstract. But if people realize that you could do mixtapes to the benefit of almost anything, right? I mean, a mixtape, when I do meet pattern language friends, means something really, really special, right? Because there's a set of patterns that works really well together. and you can do really cool things with them in terms of code and building systems and whatnot, right? So that's a really great and really valuable mixtape. And then I'm also old enough to actually having done the whole cassette players and the Sony Walkman and the whole thing, right? And that impressed the hell out of some of the girls I met, because I did really cool mixtapes, right? So that's kind of really valuable as well, but in a completely different context, right? And you can actually see now, this is kind of me spilling the beans a bit. I'm doing mixtapes almost all the time in the conversation community, but they are kind of meant to be, I'm kind of leaving out, deliberately so, select pieces, which then hopefully creates kind of, hey, I know what to add to this little thing here, right? So it's kind of like an invitation without actually me having to squeeze your arm. Thou shalt now add comments to my wonderful post. So instead I'm doing the mixtape approach, so it kind of lends itself naturally to sort of add stuff to it, right? And there's also the whole conversation community and launching it and building it to 300,000 people, mixtapes can actually be a really cool way to go about it, because then there can be sort of a wild proliferation and nooks and corners and everything. People doing their own favorite thing, which is mostly what people do anyway, so why stop them, right?
So there's a lot of these,
back to, let's see, Ron.
A lot
of these mixtapes better than I could.
Your point of mixtapes, which I didn't even really get around to, they often take the form of being in text and being posts, but they could be anything. Just like the original cassette mixtapes were collections of music that someone curated. And what I think as a practical matter, on a kind of like on a daily level, it seems like what we're talking about a lot of the time is some kind of post in digital media. And oh yeah, I'm trying to get that. It does kind of relate. I wanted to add that I see this question, what if our conversation led to a set of recipes, alterable recipes? I see it also in the context of what you said about creating social technology that lets us speak things into existence. So that's a little bit larger context than the recipes per se. And
we could possibly
where I'm at.
Completely mangle metaphors here to see if this works, because what I see Lauren what I saw in Lauren's question is this opportunity to not just do knowledge recipes, but sort of alter them and build further on them, right? And weird as I am, I immediately thought of, there's this big bunch of awesome people like us and many more of us in the conversation community, and we are heading into sort of this big symphonic recording studio, each one with our favorite riffs. And then the knowledge recipes are both those riffs, which they should be kind of our own, right? Otherwise it won't be authentic, it wouldn't be cool. If I would sort of force everyone to just do sort of jazz, if you happen to hate jazz, then that's not good, right? But then out of our sort of commingling, swapping recipes, learning from other knowledge recipes, and hey, you're doing this, wow, that's cool. That gave me an insight and build further on. And then the smaller groups can then be a way to sort of distribute the production of it, right? That's what we are doing right now. Over time, obviously, because we can't do it in one sitting. But eventually figuring out that, hey, this actually wants to be jazz, or this wants to be sort of a pop song, or this wants to be a conversation community leitmotif, or something, right? This needs to be a theme here. Globish came up in the thread repeatedly, right? And I tried to sort of postpone that, because even though I love language and think it's really important, that's for later. So there's some production things, right? This song should be at the end of the album, or this song should be only until next album. There's loads of things to sort of figure out, right? And I think it's better to distribute out questions out in these small Zoom sessions and just wait and see, are we going to do funk or jazz or pop or what? What is it, right? So, yeah. That's kind of almost an impossible thing for you
Just put out these questions.
to lead on to. But if Lauren could have a go at, if I would be glad if Lauren could make any which kind of sense what I just said, right? So let's see if that happens.
I think it might help because you keep saying questions, but I would suggest that or it might be possible to have memes or ideas, and this is just because I keep listening to these mimetics. But basically, because if you just have like a if you have like a hashtag, like the Onion ran those fake articles on this guy who was thwarted. He was interested in this girl, but he was thwarted by the Pretty Girls Union. Like, to take concepts like that and what would happen if there was a Pretty Girls Union? Like, what would they do? Just kind of like throw that idea out there and maybe see. Okay, so this is the idea of a hash bin. So we have like a hashtag, right? So this is a hashtag.
Yeah.
A hashtag is just an idea. But what if we could pass around a hash bin saying, hey, here's just an idea. Is anyone actually interested in this idea? And if you're interested in this idea, what might you contribute? What either like talent or resource do you have that you would just like to throw in this bin? And then people could look in the bin and with full creativity just create stuff, resources that are there to promote that idea, whatever the idea happens to be. So in that sense, you could actually see which ideas are trending, what resources people are willing to put forth for which ideas, like what resonates with people, and then what they actually do with the resources that are there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great idea, and I can take upon me, since I'm the annotator now in this session, I'm going to do one of those, both in the conversation community and in the large chat gathering. So we kind of now have soon, right after this meeting, a Google Doc, which is called, did you call it hash bin?
Yeah, it's just a word I made up for it because I think it, to a normal person, it's like a 3D hashtag that contains stuff. Yeah,
great. I mean, we have an actionable insight already, and we haven't really done the full time yet. So this is kind of amazing. You're ahead of schedule. So now I need to sort of filibuster the rest of the time, right? In order to sort of keep this kind of just normally awesome. No, I'm kidding. Could we have just another round?
Well, you could also, let me add to that. You could even have a structure. You could do like even just a Google Doc structure. Remember how the original web used to be, where you just have like the top links and you click on those links and it's like a substructure where you would just have sublinks under that. So you'd have one topic and then someone think of an idea and then make a subtopic under that. So you'd have some kind of like recognizable structure for these.
I actually do believe that I will go find it if it's there. I think, if I remember correctly, there was a book in the other days that contained all the web addresses. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, we could probably end up doing one of those, right? But it's kind of in a conversational twist, right? Because everyone is pressed for time. Everyone is crazy busy. There's no time left for anyone to do anything anymore.
That's not true. That's
I'm kidding. But it's kind of people go around pretending like that.
People have no time. But honestly, I just saw this TV show the other day. People spend 2 hours a day on social media. They have time. Yeah. They're just frittering it away.
Yeah. true.
They have time.
I'm still glad I said that, because that brought out that from you, right? So, but let's see if we can have another round. So, Tarik, did any of this make sense? And what is something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I was following along. I don't necessarily have anything to add, but I understand the concept well enough.
Yeah.
I believe, anyway.
I would with a hash bin. I mean, I love it for its simplicity, right? Would people use it? If we would, let's say we would build a smartphone application, right? Or a DApp, or a HAP, as they say in Holochain, right?
Yeah.
Would that be useful, right? I mean, because in the distributed nature of things, this could actually end up being worth everyone's while, right? In how many, in any which way we end up tokenizing it, evaluating it, and monetizing it, and whatnot. Right?
Yeah, I think
Well,
so. But
and Hulu. Oh, sorry.
I would know. Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say I wouldn't know heaps about it. Is all I was gonna say. Just that I don't have that much to offer. So you probably better talk, Laura.
No, I mean, you might be better served by the context around it, right? I mean, around the whole sort of, because I've noticed this. I mean, I had 3 grown kids heading into university, or just headed out of university, and they tell a similar story, right? I mean, kind of how everyone is just doing their thing, right? And they can sort of sit right next to a student, and they almost don't know the names of those students because they're doing the, I mean, they have kind of like a couple of close friends, people they study with, and so on. So but I mean, when I was a kid, we did partying and beer festivals and God knows what else crazy things we did, right? So the kind of like, and then we helped each other, because doing that obviously affected adversely sometimes study results, because we were half drunk half of the time, right? So kind of, but it's different now, right? And I'm not sure it's a good difference. The whole sort of fragmentation, atomization, alienation, and whatever elization there is, right? So knowledge recipes could just end up sort of adding insult to injury, right? Because now we would tell with excruciating detail how awful we are, right? And we don't even have ideas for hashtags anymore. And whoa, that's depressing, right? Now, but honestly, so the knowledge recipes, and I know this from my youngest kid, right? Because he says, Dad, whatever you tell them, have something for them so they can sort of mod and tweak and edit and add stuff to it, right? Because then they'll tag along somehow, right? So that might be kind of a concluding thing for us, because we are, I don't know, 10 minutes left. So kind of a short round each, and then some checkout, and then we may wave madly at each other. I mean, Ron, it's your turn, I think, if we would go sort of beyond.
Well, I would just put in that the thing that stuck with me about the university scene, you were saying that it, one thing you like to see is a place, or maybe a sense of place. I guess we could be talking about physical or digital place. And somehow I'm sort of conflating that with the hash bin. Maybe that's not, the hash bin isn't, maybe it's not quite a place, but I just see it as kind of leading to a place, or I'm not sure. So somehow I'm conflating those things, and
well, sorry, I see potential for that idea, especially if you could have it be like, because I'm not sure, I don't have the best picture of what it would be in my head, like the layout or anything, but if you had regionally specific locations in the app, for example, you could make something centered around a particular university or place, assuming it's an app. I think that would get people invested really well, because if you could engage a local community, create a place like that for a local community in a digital space, I reckon that would be really effective. Something where people can contribute.
Yeah.
Well, I like, and I'm interested in the local connection, and in conjunction with the world connection.
I mean, that's kind of an interesting, because for me, living kind of out far away from known civilization in Sweden, for me, the hashtag Chicago is usually good enough, right? I know Ron lives in Chicago, so for all I care, Ron Scroggin is Chicago. he can sort of stand in for the whole city for me, right? Because I live so far away, so I don't have normally the bandwidth to sort of just cram into my head all the other couple of million people who live in. I know that there are more people than him there, right? It's just that convenience makes it so that, like us, right? The four of us are now kind of like a microcosm of and whatever we end up sharing with the larger group, right? And I mean, in the network and digital platform context, it kind of matters. So anything has been local anchoring and universal relevance and any which thing in between. There might be a way to do this also that we can actually see real time, like a social digital proxy, because some hashtags we suggest, they don't get any traction, right? And some of them we just threw in kind of, hey, those became immensely popular. I've actually done a bit tweaking like that. I did the sci-fi thing. You could do a sci-fi story with 6 words in the conversation page, and that took off like wildfire. So there's kind of like hundreds and hundreds of different short sci-fi stories in there right now. And I wouldn't have dreamt that that would have been so popular. It just, that's kind of an example of not just Hashbin, but kind of a similar idea, right? I just threw it out and see what happens, right? So I like the idea a lot. And I really like you, Tarik, adding sort of the local anchoring of it, right? Because that would create partially intersecting sets of hashtags, like clouds or whatever we end up calling them. So yeah, great. Let's see, now it's Lauren again, right?
Yeah, so let me illustrate, like, what could happen. Say if you had, so I got this idea because I went to Fab Lab, and a friend of mine, Io, was making this ridiculous looking spacesuit. He was making a Nigerian spacesuit. Because he was into, I'm like, that is so silly. But I thought about it, and went down the street, and little kids would be like, oh my gosh, it's an African astronaut. And they were so captivated. So there were like something deep to it. But what if you just had like a hashtag like Black people in space? And then he could just take a picture of himself with that Nigerian spacesuit. And then he was developing like Nigerian space food, like spicy space food. Someone could add to that, and maybe you could just have people around a table, and they one person writes script, just something that they imagine that could happen out in space. And then you could have people around the table who could just voice the script, even just like with their phone. They could do the voices for the script, and then that could take on a life of its own. And someone would be like, that's hilarious. We're going to do a skit. We're going to do like an improv skit. And then that improv skit is like picked up by, like a professional video team who does like a video on it. But like it can kind of grow into things that have a life of their own just from kind of an idea. And then you could look back on the ones that became successful and figure out what cards or what patterns were used to make that grow, and to kind of like figure out the mimetic science behind the things that actually catch on.
Yeah, I mean, improv, it's kind of just an amazing, we almost have to do that in the conversation community, right? So next post tomorrow is going to be improv session, Nigerian spacesuit, go. I mean, that's just a really formidable challenge. Right? How do you even follow on that, right? But I know a couple of people. I will tag them, and they will start us off because they are almost crazier than me, so they will know how to improv and refer them from that, right? So, but if you want a normal post thread, stay the hell away from that one because that will be really cool. And we are at we have 2 or 3 actionable insights, which is